everyone, and thank you for coming to our Play Attention webinar. This is our first webinar in our series of 8 on executive function. And we decided today to start with how to avoid procrastination. We decided to put this first and not put it off. So we'll be talking about how to get started, how to be motivated, and how to avoid that ADHD procrastination. Couple of things before we get started. One is that we are recording this event. So if you have any family members or staff members who were unable to attend today and you want to share this with them, you'll be able to send them that replay link and they'll be able to watch the webinar from that replay link. Also, there is a chat box, of course. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. So if you have questions or comments throughout the webinar, please do feel free to type your questions in the text box. And we'll address those questions probably at the end of the webinar today, but feel free to type in your comments as we go through. Again, my name is Gwen Sorley. My background is in education, and I've been using Play Attention for over 25 years with my students. So I've been working with individuals with attention difficulties and executive function difficulties for many years now. And one area that is typically always a concern is that area of procrastination, right? Why can't I get things done? Why does it take my child so long to get started on his or her homework? And that's what we're going to really focus on today. I'm certain that many of you can relate to this situation. And when I look at this, you can think of this as yourself or your child, some type of project that you have just been given. You've been assigned this important project. And in your mind, you have been assigned this project. You know that your project is due in 10 business days. You know you can do this, right? This is something that you can do. It's not beyond your ability. So you have broken down the work in your mind, right? You have a very set schedule in your mind. You know your end goal, and you've broken it into little pieces that you can do each day. So you have 10 days. So you divide your work into those 10 days. And this is your 10-day workflow plan. Right? You're going to do a little bit of work each day, and maybe middle of next week, you're going to do a little bit more. You're going to increase your work on that particular activity so that you can be certain to get it done, so that by the time it's due on Friday, you'll have very little left to do. All you have to do is maybe a last minute edit, reread everything, make certain everything looks really good, and you'll turn it in stress-free. So you have a great plan. You have 10 days. It's within your capabilities. You've got this, right? So before you start on Monday, before you really get started on your whole 10-day workflow plan, you decide that you're going to check your text messages. And your friend has sent you a text, and she sent you a picture of 2 kittens she just adopted. And so then you decide, oh, they are so cute. What type of kitten? And she tells you the breed. And then that makes your next 8 days look like this. Because now you think, well, I have to look up the breed of that cat because that cat is so cute. And so you look up the cat and you read about the breed, but then there are YouTube videos. There's a whole playlist on the funniest kitten videos. And you find these funny kitten videos, and there's even one video where it looks like 2 kittens are talking to each other, and they seem like they're laughing to each other. So you send that in a text message over to your friend, and your friend sends you a text back that says, you think that is funny? You should watch Finnegan Fox. Did you know Finnegan Fox laughs? And then you watch the Finnegan Fox video, and foxes do laugh, and you can't believe it. And then you start thinking, well, do foxes, can you really keep them as a pet? And you start looking for fox rescues, and you find a fox rescue close by. So you think, well, I should put that into Google Maps and see where they're located. And so this is your first 8 days of your project. So now on day 9, your workflow looks like this. Your plan has changed dramatically, hasn't it? So you got very little work done the first 8 days. And then on the 9th day, you have to pull an all-nighter. And on the day it's due, you are working up to the very last minute before you have to turn it in. How many of you, now there's a raise your hand icon on the screen there below, on the very bottom of the screen. How many of you can relate to this, whether it's yourself, your spouse, your child? Okay, a lot of you are raising your hand saying that you can absolutely relate to this. I think all of us can, right? That distraction gets in the way and our well-meaning plan just kind of falls apart. So let's look at this. You know, I'll have a lot of people who will say to me, well, actually, I work best under stress. And like this gentleman says here, he says, I'm not a procrastinator. I just prefer to do all of my work in a deadline-induced panic. I don't think anyone truly likes to work that way, right? Because you get down to the very end of the week and you're working under stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety is not conducive to good attention. So you're not going to be able to work at your best. And it really just is an uncomfortable place to be. So when we look at procrastination is usually attributed to one's personality, right? You'll hear that you're so disorganized or you're unmotivated. You have a fear of failing every time, or maybe you're just lazy. You know, and I hear parents say that sometimes about their child. I don't know, he's just lazy. Just seems like he's not motivated to get anything done. Or teachers will say that he just seems really lazy, like he won't get any of his work done. He doesn't turn in anything on time. But is it really a matter of personality? Or is it related to weak executive function? Because procrastination is associated with the ability to plan, prioritize, organize, and remain on a single task. And these are all areas of executive function. Now, how many of you here are familiar with that term, executive function? I'm assuming that many of you are. Okay, a lot of you are raising your hands, so you are familiar with this term. And that's probably why you're here today. You know, we know that about 90% of children and adults with attention difficulties also have weak executive function, right? So it makes it difficult if you have weak executive function. It makes it very difficult for you to control your focus, control your behaviors and your emotions, be able to plan, prioritize, and avoid procrastination, right? Those are all parts of executive function. So I think that we have to look at procrastination and motivation in a different way. Think of it less as having to change your personality and really focus more on being able to help develop those core cognitive skills that lay the foundation for strong executive function. Your brain is wired to procrastinate, right? Let's just take that as an assumption that your brain is wired to procrastinate. Because if you perceive that the immediate hassle of starting a task is greater than the reward of finishing it, then you're probably going to procrastinate, right? If you think that it's too much of a hassle to even start, and that is greater than the reward of finishing it, then you're going to procrastinate. And if you have done this for years, if this is how you perceive things for years, then you have actually wired your brain to procrastinate. The good news is that what we know through neuroplasticity is that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable, and your brain can rewire through your perceptions, through your thought patterns, through your actions. Your brain can rewire. So we have to change our perception, right? We have to now focus more on the gratification of completing the task and focus less on the burden of getting through it, right? We have to keep that end goal in mind. That's more important than thinking about and focusing on the burden of actually getting through that task. So when we look at procrastination, let's break it down even further. There are certain elements that we want to consider for defeating procrastination. Certain terms that I want to discuss for the next few slides. One is expectancy. The next is value. The third is impulsiveness. And the fourth is delay. So let's look at each element that is required for defeating or part of defeating procrastination. First, let's look at expectancy. Expectancy is your confidence in your ability to actually end the task, complete the task, or reach the goal. So it's what you perceive you can do. Can you complete this task? And I bet all of you can relate to this, or many of you can relate to this. If you have a child with an attention difficulty, he comes to you and he has a page that is full of math equations, right? There are 20 math equations on this page. And you know he can do the math. He's very bright. The math is not an issue, right? He knows how to do these problems. But when he looks at those 20 problems on the page, he thinks that this is an insurmountable task. This task is so huge that there's no way he will ever finish this task. It's too long. He can't do it. That is his perception, right? His perception is that the burden of even getting started on this task is greater than the outcome, right? He thinks that he cannot complete it. So he's created this self-fulfilling prophecy. He can't complete it, so he's not going to start. And when you avoid, and some of you as adults out there, you might find yourself avoiding certain situations because you do feel like you might not be able to complete the task. You might not be able to reach the goal. So if you avoid even starting the task, then you kind of have a built-in excuse, right? If you don't get it done. Well, I just didn't get it done because I didn't have time, or you have this real self-protection kind of tool that you've developed, where if you avoid it, you can't fail because you just didn't get it done. So it's the expectancy. What do you think you can complete? We need to look at that very closely. Also, the value. If I do get this done, what is the value of it? How important is reaching the goal to you? What is the perceived value of actually finishing this task? Then we also have to look at your impulsiveness, right? Impulsivity is a big part of executive function, that ability to control your inhibitions. So the question is, can you control your impulsivity and delay gratification and avoid distractions, right? Very difficult if you have weak executive function, or if you're very impulsive. It's hard for you to delay gratification. So what happens if you have a hard time delaying gratification, then you're going to be easily distracted by your text messages, your social media, checking your email, right? Because all of those types of activities provide you with immediate gratification. So if your child has that paper with 20 math problems, and yet there's a YouTube video over here, that's my immediate gratification. So I'm going to be very easily distracted if I'm impulsive and I can't delay that gratification. And let's look at delaying gratification even a little bit further. We know that this is a skill that's critical to lifelong success. I wonder if any of you out there, and you can raise your hand if you'd like, have you seen the marshmallow experiment? It was done originally back in the 60s and 70s, and it looks like many of you have, by Stanford University. And they had a group of children. It's been redone several times. And if you haven't seen the videos on the marshmallow study, you may want to look it up. Not when you're supposed to be doing a task. Do your tasks first and then reward yourself with a YouTube video on the marshmallow experiment. And if you look at the marshmallow experiment, they took a group of 4 and 5-year-olds, and the researcher would go in and give them a marshmallow, and they would say, they'd put the marshmallow in front of them and they would say, okay, I have to leave the room. And if you're able to just wait for me, don't eat the marshmallow, just wait for me. And when I come back, if you haven't eaten the marshmallow, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. So there was really a greater value at the end, right? If you were able to delay that gratification, you got 2 marshmallows instead of 1. So they did this with a group of children, and some children were able to sit there and they were tempted, but they were able to control their impulsivity, stop, think before they act, and then also delay that gratification because they knew the value was going to be greater at the end. The other children just dove right in, right? The researcher left. They might try to control themselves for a little bit, but then in the end, ate that marshmallow. So when they looked at these children long term into adulthood, they found that those children who were able to delay gratification and wait for that second marshmallow, they actually had higher test scores, higher SAT scores, higher academic performance, better social interactions, less stress, greater job performance. So we know that that ability to control your impulsivity and delay gratification is a really important tool. It's a really important ability to have lifelong success. So we have to take that into account as well. And then there's delay. How far into the future is the completion date, right? We have to keep that in mind when we're looking at our motivation to complete. Because if my reward is in 3 weeks, it's less likely I'm going to start right away. But if my reward is in 3 hours, I'll probably start right away, right? So we'll look at that delay and how that is factored in to procrastination. So if we take all of these elements, we can put them into Pierce Steele's procrastination equation. Pierce Steele is a university professor, and he came up with this procrastination equation, which I really like because it puts procrastination and motivation in a very concrete context. So he says that motivation is equal to expectation times value over impulsiveness and delay. So it is an equation, and I like giving that equation because we can solve an equation. How are we going to solve our motivation factor? How are we going to solve our procrastination? We can look at it as an equation. If we increase the expectation combined with the value, so we increase what we think we can actually accomplish and combine that with the end result, right? With our reward, with the value at the end. And we decrease our impulsivity, right? Our ability to deal with distractions. We decrease those distractions. We decrease our inability to delay gratification. And we combine that with delay, right? How much time there is between the time we're supposed to start and the reward. Then we can actually increase our motivation. And you can look at this in real terms, right? If we look at this numerically and we write that as, oops, sorry about that, I went the wrong way. And we look at this as numbers. If we have a higher expectation combined with a value, so our expectancy and our value combined is a 4, and our impulsiveness and delay is a 2, then that means our end result is a 2, is a positive 2. However, if our expectancy combined with our value is a 2, so it's actually lower, and our impulsiveness and delay is higher at a 4, then our end result is a 0.5. So we're going to have a greater motivation factor if we can increase that expectation combined with the value and decrease the impulsiveness combined with delay. So it's easy to say that on paper, but how are we going to do it, right? That's the question. Let's look at some practical steps that you can incorporate today to avoid procrastination and improve motivation. One is to break the task down, right? You've probably all heard the very famous quote done by Desmond Tutu, and he said, "There is only one way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time," right? So the task looks enormous, right? How am I going to eat this entire elephant? But if I break that down into small little chunks, just one bite at a time, it seems more doable, right? So your child, that page of 20 math problems, that's his elephant, right? It looks too enormous to even start. But what if we break it down into, let's just do 2 problems. Can we do 2 problems? Of course you can do 2 problems, right? That's one bite of the elephant. So if we can increase the expectancy, then it seems more doable. He knows that he can do 2 problems. So let's break down the task. And there are certain steps you can take in order to break down a task. And we're going to review those. I do this with my students in Play Attention a lot of times, because many times they'll think that, oh, this activity is going to be 5 minutes. There's no way I can complete a full 5 minutes. So before they even start the activity, they've defeated themselves. They do not expect to be able to do this. But when I say to them, okay, let's just say, let's do 2 minutes, okay? I will tell you when 2 minutes has passed, okay? So don't ask to stop before the 2 minutes. Don't reach for the escape key before those 2 minutes. Just go for the 2 minutes. I'll tell you when the 2 minutes is over. And then anytime after that 2 minutes, you can request that you stop at that point, but not before, anytime after. Okay, well, I can go at least 2 minutes, right? So they start, I start timing them, and I tell them when the 2 minutes is over. And I tell them, any point now, you can tell me to stop. And you know that 99% of the time, they end up going for the full 5 minutes. And it's just because I helped them really see that this was a doable task, right? So we need to work towards increasing the expectancy. And the easiest way to do that is to break down the task. I'm going to give you 9 steps for breaking down assignments. And although this is going to be stated towards helping your child, just know, and you'll see it as we go through all of this, that these are applicable to both children and adults. So first, you have to figure out how much time your child has to do this task. And one of the easiest ways to do this is not to look ahead, but start working backwards, right? So look at how much time you have. Let's say you have 5 days to finish this report. So you look at the day it's due, which is Friday, and work your way backwards. Figure out how much time you have and how long your child should work at each sitting. Now, this is going to vary. It will vary depending on the age of the child. It will vary depending on his or her ability to sustain attention for long periods of time. So it is going to be very different for everyone. And you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. So if you have a very young child, maybe 6 years old, that child may be able to work maybe, let's say, 15 minutes successfully and be really productive for that 15-minute block of time. But if you're working with a child who maybe is a teenager, You could perhaps extend that to a 30-minute or 40-minute block of time. So take that into account. What is an acceptable amount of time to work in a one type of setting? And then calculate what your child needs to do each day. But in order to calculate that, you're going to have to combine the first two, right? Combine with how much time your child has with how long your child can work at each setting. Okay, so you're going to combine those two in order to calculate what needs to be accomplished each day. And then make a list of all of the materials that are required, because there's nothing more frustrating than to start your task and have a really good workflow and then suddenly discover that you don't have all the materials you need. And then that just delays everything. So make certain in the planning period, right? And this is all a process of strengthening executive function. All of these steps we're taking are steps that will improve executive function. So make a list of the materials that are needed. And then write down each task on a task card, on an individual card, so we can have all of those tasks laid out in front of us. Once we have all of those tasks laid out, put the task cards in order. So this is where you're going to break down day by day by day, what are we going to do each step of the way? And then note any questions. Make certain you do that reality check with your child. Or if you're doing this on your own, make certain that you do a reality check with yourself, right? Sometimes we talk to our children and we say, okay, you're going to do this step and then that step. And to you, it's all very clear. But what you're saying and what your child is understanding or processing may be two very different things. So make certain that you have your child explain each step back to you. So you make certain that he or she understands the process, and encourage your child to ask questions. But again, if you're doing this on your own as an adult, give yourself that reality check. Make certain that everything's very clear. If you're doing this task for your supervisor or your boss, or you're working with a colleague, make certain that you ask any questions ahead of time, so that again, you delay any frustration, avoid any frustration or delays. And then assign a deadline for each task. Because once we have everything in place and we know all the tasks we need to do, we want to make certain we have a deadline, and make certain it's short deadlines, right? Because we know if the delay is way out here, if the end goal is out here, there's less likely that you're going to start right away. So make certain you assign a reasonable deadline for each task. And then all the way through the process, review your child's progress. And this is really important for you too, as an adult. As you go through this process personally, make certain that you're self-monitoring. Self-monitoring is part of executive function. And it's really important that you take the time to make certain that you're monitoring and making certain that things are going smoothly. That gives you an opportunity to correct anything, really reflect on things that are going well for you and what you need to improve. So you should always be doing this through that process. So these are 9 steps for breaking down the assignment. And we will be sharing this as an ebook with you, so that you'll be able to refer back to the ebook and just follow each one step by step. If you're an adult or a teenager, you may also consider looking into how to create a SMART goal. Some of you may have already tried working with SMART goals, and SMART is an acronym used to create a type of goal that is very defined and specific to help you become more successful in achieving your goal. So it is a very specific step-by-step process. And SMART stands for specific. So you have a very specific goal each step of the way. Measurable, you know how you're going to measure your progress. Achievable, before you even start, you assess whether or not this is something you can personally achieve. realistic? Is this in the realm of reality, right? And this is a good time to sometimes, if it's a big goal, you might want to just run it by other people and ask them, is this something that's realistic for me? And then give yourself a very specific timeline. So the first 9 really fit into this, but this is a way for adults specifically to start creating their goals. And we have an ebook specifically on SMART goals and how to develop SMART goals. So in this ebook, you're going to be able to click on a link and that will bring you to the other ebook. So you'll have a couple of resources to help you with your goal setting. Now, that is one way that we can increase, remember, expectancy, increase our perception on whether or not we can achieve the goal. So now we've increased that expectancy. And remember, expectancy is combined with value. We want those two to be the higher number, right? So we want to increase the value. And a good way to increase value is to write your goals in such a way where you have approach goals rather than avoid goals. And this goes into the growth mindset. And if you haven't heard about the growth mindset, that's going to come up in some of our webinars on executive function upcoming. That growth mindset, when you're more positive, an approach goal are goals that focus on reaching a positive outcome. So your goal might be, I will bring my math grade up to an average of a 3.0, as opposed to an avoid goal, which has a negative outcome, right? The avoid goals are goals focused on avoiding negatives. So let's clarify that again. The approach goal are goals that focus on reaching a positive outcome, as opposed to an avoid goal, which are goals that are focused on avoiding negative outcomes. So an approach goal is, I will bring my math average up to a 3.0, right? Very positive. An avoid goal is, I will stop missing homework deadlines, right? So when you're increasing value, make certain that you're writing your goals in a positive manner. Also, make certain you have rewards in place. We all do well with rewards. So make certain you reward yourself at certain increments when you complete each step in the process. They don't have to be big rewards. They can just be a personal break, right, from the task at hand. But make certain that you do reward yourself along the way. Because if you have specific rewards at the end of the task, that's one way we can increase that value. Now, we also need to decrease impulsiveness, right? So to recap, we've done part of the equation, right? We've increased our expectancy combined with an increased value. And now we have to look at decreasing our impulsiveness. So when we look at decreasing our impulsiveness, remember that means we need to reduce the temptations. So you want to control your environment as much as possible. And a way to do this is really assess what distracts you, right? In the beginning of our presentation, that one text message just really took us down a rabbit hole that we didn't want to be on, right? It took us down a path we want to be on. And so it's really important you're aware of what distracts you. And one of the biggest distractions we have is our social media, our electronics, right? Because those types of distractions, they give us immediate gratification. So make certain you're aware of that and control it. So if you have to work for 15 minutes or you have to work for 30 minutes, that's your sprint that you're going to work, make certain you mute your phone. Make certain your social media is off and away from you. Make certain that YouTube videos aren't a click away. Make certain that you control your environment, right? So it's a good idea to just assess, take some time to reflect on what distracts you. Okay. And I have a lot of parents who will say, well, my child says he does better when he has a YouTube video running in the background. I'm not really certain that's necessarily true for all people. So you might want to try and turn some of those distractions off to make certain that you're able to really focus on the task at hand. Once you're aware of what distracts you, then you can control it. So make your list of distractions and do this together. You can do it individually, or you can kind of assess it and talk through some things with your child. What are you always grabbing for when we're trying to do math? What usually tends to distract you? And it might not be an electronic. It might be a little brother or little sister, and you may need to try to control the environment a little bit where there aren't people distractions as well. So really assess what distracts you and try to control that environment. Also, a way to decrease impulsivity is to lead a healthy lifestyle. We know that if you have a good exercise routine, if you have good nutrition, if you're getting a good night's sleep, all of those will help you improve your focus, improve your ability to remember instructions. It will help you improve your ability to control your impulsivity. So a healthy lifestyle is really critical to your overall success, because a healthy lifestyle will help you decrease your impulsivity. And now this is where it comes into play, our goal setting, right? Because if you don't have a healthy lifestyle right now, and I just said you have to exercise, you have to eat well, and you have to have a good night's sleep, already I just served up a big elephant to you, right? So if this is an area that you're thinking right now you need to improve, mini goals. Break it up into small, achievable goals, right? This is a great place to start for you. So start with, okay, one step. I'm going to exercise 15 minutes a day for the next 4 days. That's achievable. Then maybe add a healthy snack later on, but you want to start setting up those small, achievable goals. And we do have a lot of webinars and ebooks on improving your sleep, improving your exercise, having a healthy lifestyle. So make certain that you do reach out to us for those ebooks that are on our website, and also our past webinars that can help you in that type of goal setting. So we have how to decrease our impulsiveness. And then remember, the other one is to decrease that delay. So we want to decrease impulsivity and decrease the delay. And remember, the delay is the amount of time between the time you start working and the reward or the end goal, right? So in order to decrease the delay, because you might not have a lot of control in how much time is going to pass between the time you start and the time you get your reward, because maybe it's your boss or your colleague who has set that goal, right? The end date for you. So a way that you can be in control of the delay factor is to try the Pomodoro Technique. The Pomodoro Technique, and this is great for both children and adults, was created by Francesco Cirillo. He was a university professor, and he used this method with his university students on tracking their workflow. So he used the Pomodoro Technique, and he called it the Pomodoro Technique because he used a timer, a kitchen timer that was shaped like a tomato. And so the idea here is to work in short sprints and then take regular breaks throughout. Okay, and this is how you will do the Pomodoro Technique. Choose the task you want to get done. This can be a homework task. It could be a work-related task. It could be a household task like cleaning the kitchen, right? It could be any task at hand. Then set your Pomodoro for 25 minutes. Now, again, the time, 25 minutes, this is an average time for probably a teenager or an adult that's suitable. But remember, if you're working with a younger child, you might want to do 10 or 15 minutes. And then set that Pomodoro timer, set the kitchen timer to that 25-minute block of time. Now, notice what we're doing here. We're decreasing the delay, but we're also decreasing that time that you have to work, right? We're making it into smaller chunks. We're making that elephant a little bit smaller, a little bit more doable. And then you're going to work on the task until the Pomodoro rings. Now, again, we say 15 minutes or 25 minutes, whatever that is, work. And then at the end of that time, the Pomodoro rings, and then you put a check mark that you finished that 25-minute block of time and take a short break. Okay, and you can also consider the time of that break. Okay, just real short, enough time to get up, get some water, maybe walk around the room, stretch, do a little meditation, just a real mini break. All right, and then what you're going to do is you're going to reset your Pomodoro for 25 minutes and do it again. And then after you have 4 check marks, you reward yourself with a longer break. Okay, so this is a technique you can use if you have to do an extended period of time where you know that you're going to be working maybe on this project for about 3 hours and you want to decrease your delay. Then you want to make certain that you have everything set up so that you're working in short sprints and you have regular breaks throughout. And you're going to find that you're much more productive and that you're not avoiding the task so much because you can work for 25 minutes, right? And make certain you have goals while you're working throughout. So these are all ways that you can start incorporating an equation to improve motivation, avoid procrastination. So again, remember, we want to increase our expectancy. I have a hard time saying that word today for some reason. We want to increase our expectancy combined with our increased value, right? That's our greatest concern. That's going to be our focus. We know we can do it, and there's a great value at the end. And we're going to decrease our impulsivity, which means we're going to be able to delay that gratification, and we're going to avoid distractions. We're going to combine that with a decrease in delay so that there's smaller spurts of work to do with little mini breaks throughout so that we're getting a decrease in the delay of that reward or the end goal. Okay, so those are some steps that you can take. And like I said, we will include in our follow-up to all of you, we'll include this as an ebook so that you can go back and refer to some of these activities that you can start incorporating with yourself or your child. Okay, as we talked, when we talk about procrastination, we want to focus less on changing the personality of that person and focus more on improving executive function. That has to be key because when we talk about procrastination, we're talking about the ability to be organized, right? Organize and stay on task and start the assignment right away. So we need to look at how we're going to really improve those fundamental skills. And play attention does this. Play attention incorporates feedback-based technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping to provide you with the most comprehensive approach available, designed specifically for you. Will customize each person's plan to work on those core cognitive skills that you need to improve in order to strengthen executive function, right? And if we strengthen your executive function, you're going to be able to be more organized and start your assignments right away. Avoid that procrastination. So that's our goal within Play Attention. We gave you a lot of activities and strategies that you can start using today to improve your motivation and avoid procrastination. But what we want to do along with that is to teach those fundamental skills so that you can improve your cognitive skills that lay the foundation for strong executive function. So you see these students here, they have our body wave armband on. And many of you here today are Play Attention clients. So I know that you're very familiar with the body wave armband. It has those 3 sensors which monitor your brain activity that tells us how attentive you are. And then that information is given over to the computer where you're allowed to control all of the cognitive exercises just with your mind, or more specifically, your attentive state alone. And you receive constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not you truly are focused and paying attention. One of the activities we have within Play Attention that specifically works on task completion is called Time on Task. And in the beginner level, you are a little forklift driver. Once you're focused and paying attention, because remember, this body wave armband is monitoring how attentive you are. Once you're paying attention, you're able to drive that forklift driver across the screen, pick up a crate, and then drive it over to a flatbed truck. Now, if you are procrastinating, if you're fidgeting, if you're daydreaming, the task of moving all 12 of those crates and driving that truck off the flatbed truck, off the screen, is going to take you maybe 10, 12, 13, 14 minutes, because as long as you're paying attention, you're going to be able to move that forklift driver. If you start fidgeting or daydreaming, that character is going to freeze, wait for you to focus back in, which means you have to control your behavior, control your daydreaming, and then focus back in. Once you've regained your focus, you can begin again. So again, in order to complete your task, you have to move all 12 of those crates. So if you're daydreamy or fidgety or procrastinating, this can take you 10, 12, 13, 14 minutes. But the more proficient you become, the better you become at starting and completing a task in a timely manner and maintaining your attention to that one task, you're going to consistently complete this in 7 minutes or less. Okay, right there, just in that activity alone, we are increasing the expectancy, right? Because you know now that this is something you can do. And so that's just one of the activities in Play Attention where we're working on helping you know how to start and complete in a timely manner. If you want more information on Play Attention, if you have not yet started Play Attention, we do have free consultations available. If you'd like to schedule a consultation with us, just type in consultation in the chat box and one of our advisors will get back to you to help you schedule that time for a one-on-one consultation. And usually during your consultation, what we do is we talk about your different strengths and weaknesses, or maybe we're discussing your child or your clients or your students, talk about their different strengths and weaknesses, and then customize a plan for your review so that we can look at, these are the areas we need to improve. So let's pinpoint those areas, put that into the customized plan, and this is how we're going to proceed in order to improve those skills and thereby improve executive function. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about Play Attention and how we can customize a plan for you or your child or your clients or all of the above, just type in consultation and one of us will contact you in order to schedule a time for that consult. Also, next week, don't just raise your hand, actually type in consultation because I can't see the hands later on. I can only see the chat. So make certain that you type in consultation, okay? We also have a webinar next week, which is how to improve executive function and self-regulation. So how Play Attention improves executive function and self-regulation. That is actually next Thursday at 1 o'clock. If you do want to attend that, if you'd like us to go ahead and register you for that event, just type in PA or play attention, either one, and we'll get you scheduled for that webinar next week. And then, of course, we have our 8-part series. Today was our first part on executive function. And our next webinar will be on December 3rd at 1 o'clock, also a Thursday. And we're going to talk about the art of focusing in a distracted world. So we're going to focus on focus, okay? Focus and attention. So if you'd like a consultation, just type in consultation and we'll contact you to schedule that time. Make certain that you're not don't just raise your hand because I can't see those. Make certain you type them in the chat box, okay? So go ahead and type in consultation if you'd like us to contact you for a one-on-one consult. Type in play attention if you'd like us to schedule you for the play attention webinar next week. And then we'll take a week off for Thanksgiving, but then the following week is our number 2 webinar in our executive function series, which will really focus on attention and the art of focusing in a distracted world. I really do appreciate your time today. As I mentioned, I will make certain that I'm just getting some feedback here and making certain that everyone's answers have been addressed. Okay. And I'll go through some of these questions that you have because there are some questions and some comments as well. So make certain that you review this information. As I mentioned to you, we are going to send out the recording and also this webinar in an ebook so that you can refer back to it. And I do hope that we gave you a new perspective on how you can look at motivation and how you can take some steps today personally or with your child or with your students to start really learning how to avoid procrastination and be more productive and not waste a lot of time and end up in that stress mode. Now, let me go back here and answer some of your questions. Let's see, it looks like a lot of the questions we did. Shelley, you bring up, does diet make a difference in the impulsivity? Absolutely. We talked about diet, and it does make a difference in impulse control. If you have a healthy diet, then you are going to be more focused and less distracted. Katerina says temptations of distraction. So she's already made her list here. Remote school makes social media, internet browsing, off study topic, YouTube, very handy. How to control teens. They won't checking their screens and their tabs. Okay, you know, that's a good topic actually, Katerina, how to help your teenager really understand the value of closing those tabs and making certain that they're remaining on task, because you're right, it is very difficult with the temptations of e-schooling that you have those tabs readily at hand and they serve as a distraction. So how to help your teenager really start controlling those impulsive behaviors and shutting those different activities down so they don't serve as a distraction. If you did type in consultation, we will contact you after the webinar for that. Excellent. I think we have anything else. Yeah, the webinar next week and just ongoing, we do have to register everyone individually for the upcoming webinars. So we'll make certain you come back to playattention.com and click on the special webinars tab to see all of the upcoming webinars. All right, thank you, Becky. Very good. I'm glad you're able to come. Okay, I think Sharon says, I can start to daydream and realize I'm doing this, but it seems I can't stop right away, even after I've become aware. What could this mean? You know, Sharon, that's really typical. And that's what we address within Play Attention, is that ability to direct and sustain attention. Because what we need to work on is not just understanding that you're right? You can catch yourself daydreaming, but the question is, how do you redirect yourself, right? How do you control that? And that's what we teach within Play Attention. We teach you not only how to recognize that you are becoming distracted, but through the immediate feedback of that body wave technology, we teach you how to control it, how to correct it. We even have some activities that can tell us how quickly you are able to recover. So that's something that we actually teach within Play Attention, that you're just having a difficult time with that recovery, the ability to direct and sustain. Eric says, I'm working with individuals on the autism spectrum who rigidly believe they shouldn't begin unless they have enough time to finish without interruptions. Right. That's a good question. Any advice on how to help them challenge this belief? Eric, I have a couple of colleagues who really specialize in this area, and I will reach out to them and see some of the techniques that they're using and get back to you on different techniques that they're using, because that is a very good question. All right. Thank you for everything. And thanks, everyone says that they have requested the information they need or upcoming webinars. Thank you so much for everyone for attending today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and we look forward to seeing you again at our upcoming webinars. Remember, if you want a consultation, just type in that consultation note in the text box so that we can actually have those one-on-one conversations with you and better determine how we can help you in the future. Thanks so much, everyone. You have a great afternoon. Take care.